Hi, I'm Renée Walker, a mindset mentor, speaker, and lover of all things spiritual. I believe that at our core, we are all spiritually wired for love, peace, success, and abundance. Here on the podcast, we're diving into mindset, wellness, and business, but always through a spiritual lens. Let's just say we're going deep, but we're keeping it light. So let's elevate your life from the inside out, one conversation at a time. Welcome to Spiritually Wired. Welcome back to the Spiritually Wired podcast. Our guest today is Jaclyn Shaw. And Jaclyn is a spiritual mentor, and she's also the best-selling author of the book Spiritual Smackdown: From Victim to Goddess. I have to say that I just finished this book, so I feel like I have been spending hours with Jaclyn, and I've gotten to know her now. She is my friend, even though it's the first time that we meet. I am so looking forward to this conversation. Thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. And I'm just gonna say I love that. Like I love that feeling of we already know each other. And I feel like that's the connection we really get to create when we're willing to put ourselves out there in this way, like hosting a podcast, writing a book. So much of my work is really rooted in women willing to be the truth of who they are and share unapologetically. So thank you. Thank you for reading. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to dive in with you.
Yes, and you said the word, you are someone who is definitely a truth seeker, a truth sharer. And I really felt that in the book, your willingness to be authentic, to be real. You do not hold back in terms of sharing. What was a very difficult, a deeply healing experience. So, you would be the best person to walk us through. And if you're okay, to just give our listeners some context as to so coming back to the title of your book, Spiritual Smackdown, which I absolutely love. What started the spiritual smackdown?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so happy to dive in and just hearing you like bring in this frequency around truth. I want to like start by anchoring in. I didn't realize it at the time, but what through this whole journey of writing the book, publishing the book, sharing my story because it's a spiritual memoir, like I really strongly believe that as women, being willing to be the truth of who we are and share the truth about our lived experiences and our life, like this is our holy work. Like I really feel this is what we're here to do. And it's not only healing for ourselves when we can, you know, stop holding back and like really share. For me, my journey has been so much about feeling connected to other women, and I believe that happens when we're willing to share our truth. And one thing that I felt really at the beginning of this experience that I call my spiritual smackdown, which was when I was pregnant with my daughter, is I felt so alone. I felt like I couldn't tell anyone what was going on because I was afraid that they were going to judge me and how they would look at me and they would think of me and what they would think of my family and my husband and all of it. And the fact that it was happening while I was pregnant, like just brought on so much for me that I carried and like truly tried to carry alone. I have a very supportive family, a mother, three sisters, and even like I kept it from them, my best friends.
Mm.
And in sharing my truth, it's like I really don't want other women to go through life, whether it's, hardships in life and relationships, their business, like feeling alone.
Mhm. And for someone who, if you haven't read the book, so part of your story is that you found out that your husband was having an affair, when you had a toddler, very young, and then you were pregnant for your second one. And so it's the story of the finding out, but then also the healing piece to it, which was very, and again, as I said, you really bring us into that story without holding back. And I feel like part of what you give to people is that so often, as you were saying, when we don't share, then we live in shame. What we don't share just festers, and it becomes this shameful story, yet you were able to completely bring it to light in a way that everyone can see themselves, whether it's a specific that's no one has that specific story. We all have our own unique stories, but everyone can see themselves in some part.
Yeah, and it was so, interesting for me. You bring up the shame that I felt, and like shared, like I felt so alone within this experience. And I mean, I'll also say like I was very blindsided by this. People ask all the time, they're like, "But was there red flags you just didn't see?" And I like really thought we were like very happily married. Like our friends were like I felt like I was like the envy of everyone in our relationship. And once our son was almost 2 at the time, and we had gone through a couple hard things in terms of some I had had 2 second-term miscarriages. Like, so in hindsight, I can see where we broke down communication, but really, like, my husband having an affair, like, he's like, I've dated a lot of guys before that I would have expected that from, let's just say, and, like, it
Mhm.
was, like, so just, like, not in the realm of, like, possibility that I felt in my world, and I felt like I had finally, like, chosen the right partner and started our family. And then I like, there was so much judgment for myself, and I had these thoughts coming in, and like, what are people gonna think of me if my like perfect husband, who everyone loves, can have an affair while I'm pregnant? People must think like I'm this like horrible human and this horrible woman, and like it like all on me. And I mean, I definitely wasn't, I'd say, like, spiritually connected in the way that I am now. Like, I had dabbled in spirituality. I don't believe we're ever not connected, but I wasn't aware of really who I am. And so this journey of finding out that my husband was having an affair when I was pregnant. I was 3 months pregnant at the time, and we were separated throughout my entire pregnancy, and there was some health complications with my daughter. And I really like had to take a deep look at myself and a deep dive into myself. And at the time it was very much, and this was the journey of the spiritual smackdown, like really connecting to myself, really finding, truth throughout this experience, finding God throughout this experience, and becoming unwavering in that knowing of like who I am and who we all are as divine beings and divine creators. And I started to take a lot of responsibility, like radical responsibility for my life and the way that I was operating, the way that I was, reacting to life and operating out of self-righteousness and the desire to be right, and how that was just creating a lot of disturbance in my life. It's like I said I wanted peace, but then I was the one like willing to throw the daggers all the time. I say the journey from victim to goddess. I wanted to find my power, and yet I was operating from victimhood a lot. And so it really was an experience for me that, I mean, I'm just gonna say, like, this was 10 years ago, and it's like made me the woman that I am today. Everything that I lead in now in my life and business and mentorship, as a wife, as a mother, I can like really take it back to this experience 10 years ago of truly finding myself.
And part of the story is that you do come back together, and so you are with your husband today. And what I really respect in the way in which you share the story is that, as you said, you take responsibility for the ways in which you were showing up, and recognizing that it's not it's two souls kind of joined together. But the piece that really you can feel throughout the book is how you had this intuitive knowing, and you speak of it in different ways where it's this knowingness that you were meant to be together, which didn't make sense because he certainly for a period of time was not giving you any proof or any sense that it made that you were meant to be together, yet you knew deep down um, that your story was not over, that you were still meant to be together. So I'd love to go there because The intuition piece is one that I do believe that for women, it is one of our superpowers, yet it can be so difficult to trust it, especially in these moments. So,
Well,
what has it been like for you to listen?
I was gonna tell like, it was honestly really hard for me at that time to, and the words that just kept coming forward for me and moving through me was like, "Your story isn't over yet." And I like the human part of me, like the woman who was like enraged, the woman who felt like the victim, the woman who thought it wasn't fair, the woman who wanted to say like "F you." Like my husband was living 2 blocks away with another woman for 8 months during my pregnancy. Like I wasn't just like, our story's not over because I don't want it to be over. I was like, I want our story to be over. Like I had always been the woman who was like strong, independent, was like, this will never happen in my life. If this ever happens, like I will pack his bags faster than like he can. And so having this experience where like I just felt that it was not over, it was like, can I actually listen to my soul truth above like again what I want to choose from different states? And so yeah, it really was the willingness to put my soul truth above like what my mind wanted to tell me, what people in my world, in my life wanted to tell me, what I thought I would have chosen before.
Mhm. And such a big piece of it was is forgiveness, and I know that that is a topic that shows up a lot in the world that I'm in and with being with women and coaching and holding space in community. Forgiveness is such a it can be such a difficult thing for people, yet we know it's one of the most liberating practices that we can do. So, what was your how did you forgive?
So it's kind of interesting this topic I find, and I mean you just read the book, and so there's different. I mean I've received like honestly the most beautiful support and incredible reactions to it, and then there's also been, I mean, as you can imagine, talking about like God and infidelity and like brings up a lot for people. And one of the biggest things that people ask me, like, but we like you didn't go deep enough into the end part so that we all know it's worth it, like that you made the right choice. And for me, I didn't share to go deeper in that part and beyond because like beyond that experience, because for me it's like whether my husband and I stayed married after that isn't even really like the point. It's like who
Mm,
I became within that experience. And so forgiveness for me was really about like where I was like really ready to like let go, where I was holding on. And I found myself like going through forgiveness work and recognizing like I wasn't just mad at him, and it wasn't just forgiving him for things. It was like forgiving myself, forgiving God, like where I was like holding on to, I mean, quite truthfully, a lot of judgment. And so when my husband and I were reconciling, like he like that was the question. He's like, how would you ever forgive me? How would you ever forgive me? And the truth is, like, I already had at this point that we were even discussing it. Like, when I stopped judging him, when I stopped judging the experience, like I feel like forgiveness just moved in. And people often ask, and this is the part I was gonna say when people ask, they're like, but how did he earn your trust back? Because we have this idea that we need to like earn trust and people have to be deserving of. And to me, I'm like there's something just really off in this, because it feels like unless you do something, you're not deserving, you're not worthy. And I mean, I through this experience, it's like, can I look through the lens of like my choice? Like, where do I get to take responsibility here? Like this rat, and again, not responsibility for his actions, but my part in this now. And so I very much decided that if I was going to remain married and if we were going to reconcile, like I was gonna trust. It's like I'm not willing to be in a relationship where I don't trust. And so I'm gonna choose to trust, and ultimately because I trust in myself. I trust in
mhm,
myself to know what's true for me and follow that. But was like, I'm not willing to live an experience in this life. I'm not willing to live in a marriage where it feels like someone needs to prove themselves to me, where I'm holding on to like, I actually had someone say to me, they're like, oh, so like you have a hall pass now. And I was like, what? And they're like, well, one day when you find yourself and you want to do this. And I was like, that to me sounds like the most insane thing. I'm like, why would I like do everything like all this takes? Because of course there was a lot of healing work on the other side for him and I. And if I was gonna have a hall pass, or if I was gonna, like, every time we got in a fight, like, bring it up, if I was gonna be holding on to this, like, I'm gonna, like, make you pay for this for the rest of our life, and it's been 10 years now, and I can honestly say, like, I mean, we've obviously had conversations about it, but there's never been a, like, throw in your face moment, even in arguments, and I feel like that was, like, my choice. It was very much like, if we are going to, like, reconcile, it's gonna also be, like, clean slate, and not
Yeah.
and then people get mad about that. They're like, "So you just, like, let him off the hook?"
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not here to punish him and hold this over his head and to, like, judge, because I don't wanna choose that experience for myself.
Yeah, you said something where it's, you realize so you share that forgiveness came when you realized that there was nothing to forgive. And, from a spiritual perspective, I think that that is probably like one of those most powerful shifts that we can make when we come at it like at a soul level. Maybe the humanness in him made poor decisions, right? Or chose something that was hurtful and you did. And all of us do, right? That's part of being human. No one is perfect, but you really chose to stay with the at the soul level, the connection that you had and forgiving him. I mean, it's always easier there when we come at it from this place versus maybe the human part of it we can't quite forgive yet at a soul level can we bring ourselves to forgiveness.
Yeah, and I think one of the, through this experience and other experiences in my life, like, one of the things for me has been, like, we really can't walk in somebody else's shoes. Like, we don't know their experiences in life, what's, led to them making the decisions that they're making, and I mean, I didn't share a ton of my husband's story throughout, but, like, there was a lot of, abandonment wounds for him that he had to look at on the other side, and at the time, like, it was much easier for him, like, he was choosing the easy route of, choosing to leave before he felt like he was gonna be abandoned, and, like, that's an experience that I just couldn't understand, in the sense of, I don't have that story. I don't have, like, abandonment in my story from childhood, let's say, and so I think part of, like, forgiveness and being able to release the judgment is, like, we really, you know, we don't know. We can say that I would never do this, or I would never, and it's like
Mhm.
your experiences in life, but everyone else is walking around with different experiences than you, and different set of, you know, conditioning and patterns and beliefs and truth, and I don't know, it really, like, it's so interesting because I would not say I was a very compassionate person. Like, I was very much a person who lived in a world of black and white, and it's like there's right and there's wrong and there's good and there's bad, and there really is no room for, I mean, I'm gonna say gray, but there was, like, no room for compassion, because it's like, like, and you're either right or you're wrong, or you're this or you're that, and this did really, cause me to look at things from a different lens.
Yeah,
Like, seeing
absolutely.
through the lens of truth, of love, of God.
So you mentioned at the beginning that when this was happening, that yes, you had a spiritual connection, but and you can feel it even as you move through the story that your relationship with what you now call God, has shifted, and I'm sure now you say this was 10 years ago that the book was when was the book released? It was released more recently, correct? Yeah,
Yeah,
so you've
yeah,
written it
yeah.
more recently, but the experience so this happened, over 10 years ago, so I'm sure your relationship with God has now even shifted even more, so I'd love for you to share what that's been like, how different your relationship is with God.
So even, I mean, I just finished writing my second book, and I get really into, it's called Whispers of the Divine, and I really get into this in this book, is my journey with God. And to give you the short version here, like, at the time, I mean, I never would have said the word God. Up until a few years ago, I never would have said God. So in my book, when I use the word God, I also acknowledged at the time it was like universe, it was spirit. And I think just because the word God honestly like just made me feel uncomfortable because I was afraid of, the judgment of using the word God. Again, see the theme of like judgment and this, and people will misunderstand and people will think I mean a God who's punishing and who believes in, right and wrong. And because like, and so I really did like the word God was so uncomfortable for me for a long
Mhm.
time. And so I used, spirit and universe because at first, like, that's really what it was for me. And it didn't feel like, oh, I'm praying to God behind the scenes, but saying the spirit and universe publicly. And then there became a point where that shifted, where I stopped experiencing God as like outside of me and this like higher power being. It's like connected to the God within me. And then it also, I talk about showing up in our truth. And I lead on online, I speak on stages, and like not using the word God felt like I was not speaking my truth. It's like there was just like a little wobble there. It's like, let's say the safe thing. And I was like, yeah, like God is the connection point for me. And so can
Mm.
I own that and be unapologetic about it and, be misunderstood at times and be judged at times and have people, not come into my world because of it. And then but it's also been fascinating. Like one of my, I had a client I've worked on and off with for a few years now in a one-to-one capacity, and she doesn't believe in God. And I don't hold back on my beliefs, and I still talk about God in our conversations, and I don't try to convince her, and she doesn't try to convince me, and we have such powerful work together because we don't need each other to like believe the same thing.
Mhm.
It's like I can be in my truth and she can be in her truth.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Coming back to that word truth. And it is interesting with the word God. I think so. There's many people who still connected with God from a religious perspective. So that has also, I know for me as well, I tend to will use some words, spirit, God, universe, use the one that resonates with you most. But then there's power in owning the truth that feels most connected to you. And I know that you say something where it's God responds to your frequency, not your wants. I've heard you say that. You're probably listening to me and you're like, "Man, she really did she really did do her homework."
Well, she listens, she listens, and do you know what? Honestly, like, I
Paying
love this because
attention.
one of the things people said to me, and it was interesting because, like, the book was released now about 6 months ago, and I get the same response, like, today as I got then, and it's a unique word I find, but people will say, like, "I devoured your book," and people are like, "I
Mhm,
couldn't put it down. I read it in 24 hours. I read it in 2 days." And while I love that, like, I love that people just because I mean, as somebody who thought I wasn't an author and then was told not to publish the book, I really felt like the book. I love how I wrote the book. It felt very masterful in the dance of the storytelling and the wisdom. And so I loved that people were devouring it so quickly. But then I also was like, and go back and read it again. Like, this is the thing,
mhm,
is like what you're saying here. It's like, also, like, don't just consume and on to the next. Like really like let the messages land for you. Like really receive the wisdom. Really sit in contemplation with your own life. Like that's for me is why I wrote the book, not to share the like drama of the story, but to really like share the wisdom that moved through me because of that experience.
mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for like really like connecting and feeling the wisdom.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. It is one of those, you can feel the purpose behind it, as you said. Like, it shares the story, but to me, it's a story of forgiveness as well, which I think is such a powerful, it is so important for all of us, and I know will give hope and give also a different perspective on what it means to also be in a place of unconditional love, and I hesitate saying it, and I hesitate saying it only because we know that there's a difference between being in toxic situations where you do need to be out, and so it is this fine line that I know you are aware of as well. Yet, what does it look like for you? In your case, it was an invitation to stay in a place of unconditional love.
Yeah. And I think that it's I also think it's so fascinating and interesting because I do believe people also receive the message in a way that's, unique to them. And so, you're saying that you find that the book is about forgiveness and unconditional love, and someone else feels that it's a journey of really
Yeah.
like faith and trust and surrender, and somebody else finds it's an experience of, really like that walk with God, and someone else will say that they find it's an experience of like the power of choice. And so, I mean, there's definitely I mean, it really was an 8-month experience that has changed and transformed everything. Like I would literally say everything about who I am. And so I just decided I was going to be open and willing to share, to truly share all of it and to not hold back because like I really again strongly believe that this is not just again healing for me, but this is what allows for collective healing when we don't let these stories of the experience that I had with publishing was told that it was too shameful. It's too shameful to publish. It's too
Yeah.
shameful. Like, take your story out of it. Why would you do this to your husband and to your kids? People are going to know this about you. Like, and this was, I was told this by a mentor of mine who is like, I'm going to call him a spiritual guru, like very well known spiritual mentor, spiritual author, best-selling author. And it was a fascinating experience for me because it was like, okay, are you going to listen to like the guru, the one that knows, are you going to decide that the story is too shameful to put out into the world? Are you going to listen to your truth? Are you going
Mhm.
to actually like break down the barriers of shame by speaking so open and honestly and letting people like really into, a very vulnerable time and experience in my life?
Yeah, that's the piece about listening to your intuition that's the hard part of it, is we like to think that our intuition is guiding us towards the easier things to do, the fun things, what feels light. Yet so oftentimes your intuition is guiding you to share this story, which obviously the easier thing would have been not to open up that whole story and to now have it be out there and to be talking about it more. Yet you trusted that for some reason it was meant to be said, and it was meant to be said in its entirety, not like cherry picking the better parts of it.
Oh my God, and let me tell you, like, this was not easy. So when this mentor had this conversation with me, and previously he had said he loved it, and then he was like, it wasn't just like a kind of like, this is shameful, you shouldn't do it. It was a 45-minute conversation of like really trying to convince me not to and giving me alternatives. And we could do this instead, and we compare this wisdom with this and this and this. And he had this whole idea, and I'm going to hand it to my publisher, and this is going to be a bestseller, and I'm going to help you make it a bestseller. And as long as you do it this way, and it really, it felt like there was like this carrot dangling in front of me. And I sat there for 45 minutes in a puddle of tears. And really in
Mm.
a puddle of tears because I knew from the moment he said it that I was like, I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to listen. And it felt like almost like heartbreaking for me to be like this isn't easy. This is not going to be easy for me to walk away from, you know, the agreements that I had with him. This is not easy for me to stand in this truth. And it felt like heartbreaking because I knew I was being called. Like I knew I was being called into something and it felt bigger than me. It just felt like, there were some questions that I had too. I thought like, do you really want your kids to like read this someday? Like at this depth, and is that fair to them? And ultimately at the end of the day was like, yeah, I'm just not willing to like hide, and I'm not willing to remove the parts and the stories that have like made me who I am today.
And I love that you add, even at the end, there's a small section from your husband too, who's been very supportive, right? So that part as well just helps to you just tie it all together at the end in a beautiful way. So the interesting thing now is that you're saying you released that 6 months ago, and now you've got this new book that is coming out. And so what I'm seeing from you is you've shifted. So from this spiritual smackdown, which really caused you to reevaluate so much of your beliefs and the way in which you were showing up in your relationship, but also for yourself and in your relationship with God. And now, 10 years later, you're at this place where you have this different relationship with God and you are helping other women. So tell me, because I know that you are also, you help business owners. And so where does God come in here? How do you support business owners in their growing their business, but using God to help them, support them?
Honestly, like everything I do in business mentorship, like I am definitely like a spiritual mentor first, and a lot of people that come work with me, like they are female founders, they're business owners, some men, but mostly females. And I mean, my whole message is really like when we're willing to be the truth of who we are and come into this place of deep conviction and be unapologetic and be the fullest expression of selves, like that's how your business grows. That's how you get paid. And like really understanding that the walk is with God. Like God is the permission slip, not looking outside of yourself for validation, for, that the results determine the impact. It's like, can I be the truth of who I am? And one thing I say in connection with that, like that allows God to sign the paychecks. God signs the paychecks. I am employed by God. I get paid by God in direct reflection of me being willing to be who I am and to not compromise in that, and to be willing to show up in my truth when it's messy, when it's hard. And I mean, people respond to truth. People respond to conviction. For me, like truth is the most powerful currency because you can feel that in someone. You can feel that in their essence. We can feel when someone's also in performance. I mean, one of the biggest things when we talk about, even writing my books, I think most women think that they're like they're waiting on something outside of them. They're waiting on God. They're wondering when and how and when it's going to happen. And so they stall, they delay. It took me 8 years. I mean, it's been 10 years. My daughter is about to turn 10, so it's been 10 years since my spiritual smackdown, but it took me 8 years to write a book. I knew I was going to write the book when she was 3 weeks old. I hesitated for 8 years because I told myself I wasn't a writer. I told myself I don't know how to, I don't know how to write books. I'm not an author. And then I owned that I am and wrote the book. And then right after writing that book, like I wrote the second book in 7 weeks. And there's a third book and a fourth book and a fifth book that are also being written. But a year and a half ago, like literally was like, I'm not a writer. And so everything kept getting delayed. Like it took forever to write that first book because I didn't own who I am. I didn't own that I'm a conduit of God, that words are being, brought forth from within me for a reason. And they're not meant for me to hold, they're meant for me to share.
So, what comes up for me, when you say this, is such an important piece of this is the surrendering piece. So, if God is signing your paycheck and you are in co creation with God, there needs to be a willingness to hand it over to God and to not try to control. So, how can you, for someone who is listening and they're having a hard time with the surrendering piece, the trust piece. How can you strengthen that
So
part?
first, I think we have to acknowledge like we create the interference, not God. And so
Mhm.
we place the limitations in our field. And where we do that the most often is when we try to control things, when we go to our mind and try to analyze it and try to figure things out and do all the things we've been taught and conditioned to do. Like you're taught to weigh the pros and cons and to make the choice that makes sense. But when we go to our mind, that takes us out very often, that takes us out from like the connection to our soul and the connection to truth, and we try to make things to make sense, but it's not meant to make sense because you haven't lived that experience yet. And so I tend to work with a lot of women who are like, I want to experience, wild abundance. I want to experience more wealth. I want to experience more impact. I want to experience, all of these things. But yet they're making decisions from what they already know. They're bringing the past evidence into the now. They're making decisions based off that because they're going to their mind. They're trying to control it. They're trying to control the outcome. They're trying, again, to make sense of all of it. That's where we limit ourselves. And so my journey has been a lot of like really letting it not make sense, like dropping the part of me that wants to think very logically about things, the part of me that's like, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I can make this happen, I can do this, I can work harder. And it's like, but is that really the experience that I want to have? And if it's not the experience I want to have, it's like, can I be willing to like disrupt these thought patterns? Like, can I be willing to sit in sacred witness of myself and see the lies that I tell myself? And so, I mean, I lied to myself for years. I lied to myself when I told myself I didn't know how to write. I lied to myself. I mean, we lie to ourselves like in so many moments of the day. That idea of, I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy, or I need to know more, or this is what the experience was last time, so that's what's the experience is going to be tomorrow. Like, what's the point? Like, I just had to stop like that noise. It's like, yeah, that's the mind chatter. That's the noise. That's what you feel and think and hear when you're not in connection with God. Get back into connection. Sit with self, sit in silence, sit in sacred witness of yourself. And that's what's going to ultimately shift everything, because you're not operating again from up here and caught up in the noise and looking at social media and seeing what Jenny's doing and Susie's doing and trying to compete and trying to compare. It's like the pathway is ready to be revealed for you, but it exists from within you. It's about going deeper in versus like outside, looking for the solution, looking for the strategy, looking for the funnel, looking for whatever it is that you think is going to create this massive change for you. What's going to create massive change is you in connection with you operating from your personal alignment, you seeing where you're choosing things that are misaligned, where you're saying yes when you want to say no, where you're saying no when you want to say yes, and coming into again that level of radical self-responsibility, and know like you are a divine creator. You're in this creation field with God, walking with God.
That's the practice. That's the practice that we oftentimes think that we can gloss over, yet there is no glossing. That we can't skip that part, right? There has to be this willingness to be with all that is, not just the pretty good parts.
Yeah. And I often talk about this. I love that you said the word willing. I often talk about this, like what I'm willing to do and not willing to do. And it's like, I am no longer willing to deny my soul. I am not willing to show up and follow somebody else's blueprint that's like laced with should energy or need energy for me. I am not willing to dilute my voice. I'm not willing to change my words to make you feel more comfortable. This was in a big experience of writing my second book. The first editor like throughout the Google documents, like, this makes me uncomfortable. Change these words. You can't say it like that. And we found a new editor for me because I'm like I'm not willing to compromise my voice. And so I came into this strong, like there was like things that I'm not willing to do. And then it's also, and I'm willing to be judged. I'm willing to be misunderstood. I'm willing for people to not get it. I'm willing for it not to make sense. I'm willing to move when I don't have clarity, because I know that the movement is ultimately what creates the clarity. And so it comes with these two strong energies of things that I'm very much not willing to do, and other things like, again, I'm really willing to not know, to not have it figured out, which was a hard one for me, because again, I was like, another version of myself was like, and I know, and I make happen, and this makes sense, and this is like, it was like very like boom, 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 boom. And so being willing to surrender in the unknown, I mean, this to me is the biggest gift, like feeling alive in the unknown. That's where most people get paralyzed. They're like, I don't know, so let me try to control, let me figure it out, let me do this. But the unknown is God's playground. The unknown is where the magic exists, where the miracle gets to enter, where the quantum leap happens.
Yeah, and that's where it goes against the natural instinct of the mind, which is to keep us safe, and so to actually make sense of everything and to know, and that's where the surrendering comes in. But I love how you said the willingness piece, but like being willing to oftentimes like those actions and what we're taking, they are uncomfortable. And so we need to be willing to be uncomfortable. The not knowing, the surrendering is so incredibly uncomfortable until it becomes maybe a little bit more comfortable, yet it really, yeah, I thank you for really shedding light on that. I think it's so important for everyone to hear.
Well, and I think this piece around like our comfort, our comfort zone, I think that there's also a bit of misunderstanding, I'm going to say, about nervous system, like work and regulation. And I'm all for all of it. Like, yes to all the breath work, yes to all the meditation. And then I find this with everything. I talk a lot about human design, and it's like, and then people will bring in human design as their excuse or their limitation. They
Mhm.
bring in nervous system regulation as the excuse, as the limitation, because like, oh, I need to stay comfortable here. I need to stay so like regulated. And for me, it's like, and I've also got to be willing to meet myself at the edge and to stretch my capacity
Yeah.
and know that like I can hold more. And having these practices isn't about like needing to remain comfortable. It's like even when I stretch outside of my comfort zone, I can remain regulated because again, I know who I am and I trust in who I am and I'm willing to meet myself at that edge as well.
Yeah, and I guess it's the key thing is where it's coming from. So when it's coming from an alignment place, a soul place, it may be uncomfortable in what you're doing, but it is coming from within versus when you're doing things and you're pushing yourself to do things in order to receive that external validation, then that feels off and it's a different kind of discomfort.
Absolutely, and the reason why I wanted like, it's highlighting that, it's like because I think this is where we sometimes, like, take things in a context and it's like, "Oh, no, like, I can't step out of my comfort zone," and it's like, "No, that's actually the requirement." Like, you
Yeah,
want to experience something different, you've gotta also choose to operate in, like, ways that you haven't been operating before, and that's gonna be like, it is gonna be uncomfortable. It's stretchy, it's edgy, like, let me tell you, you talk about, God and money and write a book about infidelity and you publicly state like you're not willing to deny your soul. Like I get invitations all the time that's like, wait, is she gonna deny her soul now? Is she gonna betray herself? Here is this, and it's like I mean, I'm constantly having experiences, like I just said with this publisher, like, can I stand in the truth of who I am, even when this is happening? And again, can I let that grow and expand my energy field? Can I become like, I was gonna say, like, it's interesting because I really don't like this word. So I have to like stop here. It's like, can I become more of who I am? But for me, it really isn't a journey of becoming. I think that's also like a lie that we've been told. Like, we need
right.
to become. It's like, no, I just own who I fucking am.
Yeah. It's more the remembering piece, right? That was where meditation clicked for me when one of my teachers explained it as a practice of remembering. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't actually have to go anywhere in this meditation. I just have to remember who I am.
It's
There
like,
is something so powerful.
yeah, it's like remember who, like for me, it's been like remember who I am, and then remember who we all are as, divine beings and human beings.
Mhm,
So we're
mm.
all like seeing each other as divine beings. I mean, how powerful is that? And then seeing each other as like human beings who are gonna make mistakes and who are gonna, like we said, like operate from, your own wounds, your own experiences, and can I really allow for all of it? Like, can I be here for the full human experience and the full soul journey?
Absolutely. So when it comes, you're speaking about being part of being in your truth and really connecting with your soul and coming at it from this perspective, remembering, right? Showing up from your truth and being willing to play or be at the edge of your comfort zone. That can be, I've used the term sometimes having this vulnerability hangover, right? And I'm sure you've had many of them as you are, because you're going right in there, sharing some very difficult topics that I'm sure are very activating, very triggering for other people. And so, our tendency when we live at the edge or we do something that feels like we're tapping that comfort zone is we want to retreat and we want to go in. And I know I have my moments, and part of that is practicing self-love and compassion. But it's knowing that limit. So I'm curious, like, how do you hold space for yourself when you are living at the edge, when you are in a place where you're tapping that comfort zone, that edge all the time? How do you hold space for yourself?
I'm kinda giggling here because like my husband wouldn't say I live at the edge. He's like, no, like you live beyond the edge. Like I'm like just like over the edge. And it's funny because like honestly, this is the way I operate in my life, in my business. And recently we've just done a cross country move, and there was, there was like moments of, yeah, just like, moments of things with like buying this house. And my sister asked at one point, she was like, are you stressed about this? And I was like, no. And she's like, and because I was just in like a trust and faith, and of course, like God's conspiring in my favor. And she was like, "Is Craig stressed?" And I was like, "I don't think so." And I literally was like, "Craig, are you stressed?" And he's like, "Yes, like of course I am." He's like, "What are you even talking about? How are you not?" And I feel like honestly, it's like, I mean, for 10 years, I've really been operating this way for the most part, but like more so like the last few years, like just really solid in like, I'd love to be in the unknown, because that really is where I feel like I get to anchor into like God and faith and trust. And so like my invitation is actually more just like, let yourself like jump into the deep end and not know, and trust. Like for me, it's like I'm willing to see God's hand in all of it. So I'm willing to see God's hand in the messy and in the beauty. And so it's like I don't need to protect myself. Like I don't need to just like slowly go into the shallow end. I'm like, let's just like really, really, really go all in. And so a lot of my energy stems from like this willingness to go all in, because I trust that I've got me. I trust that God's got me. I trust that no matter what I experience, it's in service. It's in service of me. It's in service of the evolution of my soul.
Do you have some non-negotiables in terms of, like, your spiritual practice on a daily basis? Does it look like any specific practices or
I don't. I'm really not someone. I'm quite interested in some of these conversations. Like I don't have boundaries. I don't have non-negotiables. And when I say like I don't have boundaries, like there's not things that feel like very like set in stone for me. I don't like routine. My kids are unschooled. Like I really work well when I am in free flow. And I feel like because I like trust in myself so deeply, it's like just following each day, whatever, I feel called to do. And the flip side of this is having like non-negotiables or boundaries or these like routines. What it actually does for me personally, and I know that this is like so different for everyone, but for me personally, it becomes like a checklist. It becomes like it shifts the energy behind the thing I do. It becomes
Mhm.
like a need, it becomes a should, it becomes a have to, it becomes like whatever it is. I mean, communion with God, prayer, meditation. I like one of my deepest spiritual practices, I would say, is reading spiritual books and spiritual texts. Every time I show up online and speak my truth feels like me in devotion to God and a spiritual practice. And so these are things that I do every day, but I don't do it in like a routine.
in a
That
structured way per se, it's more a part and it's so important to share that, I think, because everyone is different, but to honor, the theme that keeps showing up is permission to do it your way. I know
yeah.
in my life and community, it's just permission to like we get to do it our way and what works for us. But then the key component is having space to be, when you speak of being the witness to what is showing up for you, there needs to be some space there to be able to witness it. Otherwise, when we're stuck in the doing and we're just go, go, go in our heads, that's when we forget. That's when we don't pay attention to what our body is saying. So it sounds like you've embedded that space within throughout your day. It's a part of the being. And so the structured routine doesn't feel necessary.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting. Like my kids are now almost 10 and 12, and like I mean, for the last 10 years, I've meditated with them every night before bed, but it doesn't feel like it's
Mhm.
what we do. You know what I mean? It's just like it's what we do, but it's never like, oh, now it's time to meditate. And there's just like something different in that
Yeah.
energy for me. And the other night was my son's birthday, and we were at a basketball game and came home at 1 a.m. And I was gonna be like, did we med? And like, I mean, I think we just fell asleep, but like I played a meditation while we were falling asleep. But at the same time, like if we didn't meditate that day, I'm also not gonna like then the next day wake up and be like, oh, like we didn't meditate, we didn't follow the spiritual practice. And I'm highlighting that because I used to like have this what I would call the spiritual measuring stick, whereas like you didn't do your spiritual practices today, like you're a bad girl. And I was like, you
Mm.
didn't read your book for 10 minutes. You didn't journal. You didn't whatever it is. And that's where I was saying like that actually was creating interference for me because it was putting me in that space of like there's a good girl energy and a bad girl energy and a right way to be spiritual and a wrong way to be spiritual. And like, I mean, truthfully, I just feel like everything I do is spiritual. The way I drink water is spiritual. The way that I show up in my business is spiritual. Like I stopped separating myself from spirit and from God. And so it really is more like I'm just like constantly like in a walk with God.
Mm.
Everything I do is part of God. God's part of me. I'm part of God.
In a walk with God. There you go. That is the uh, so incredibly important. And for anyone who's listening, just to really receive that it is not about the practices that we do, it is about what it brings into our lives. And then there are times when, yeah, maybe the practices that served in a season no longer serve in another season. So really being in the witness seat, we can observe what is serving us and what isn't. I know there are times where I feel like I need more structure around my practices. And then there's times where it doesn't feel like they're serving me in the same way.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
this I think is really important because it's
Mhm.
not only unique to everyone. Like I know other people like they're very much served by our morning routine as an example. But not only is it unique to everyone, but it's going to be unique to you in different seasons. So like you just
Yep.
shared that like sometimes more structure is an alignment for you and sometimes it's not. Sometimes that becomes like again the energy that God's not really able to respond to because you're doing it more to like check it off the list than like really receiving from it. And so I feel like understanding like we're natural, receivers and givers and doers. And so operating from this place of real freedom of like, and I get to have this space and this time and I get to meditate, not I need to or else.
Mhm. Yeah, I love it. And I saw you posted something where it's like, is it, when God is Godding?
Yeah. Yeah. This is like, I mean, this is my clients often tell me who read the book, like, this is my favorite energy is like God's from within us. And so
Mm.
like, can I really walk that way, operate that way, move that way? It's like God's experiencing life through me, and God desires to experience abundance. Desires to experience like beauty and all the things. And so it's like, where do I limit myself with this idea that
Mhm.
like my wants and God's wants are different? This brings us back to when you said too, like God responds to your frequency, not your wants. And what this means, like, I do believe that God's wants and my wants are one and the same, but the frequency behind that, it's like, who am I being? What are my
Mm.
beliefs? If I want something, but I tell myself that's greedy or selfish or shameful or bad or, whatever it is, well, God's responding to that frequency of like, if I'm sitting here being like, I want to make a bajillion dollars, but then the story that's running behind that is like, but people with money are bad and selfish and wrong. Like God's responding to that, not responding to like what I say I want. If I say that I want to experience peace, I mean, this is a big experience for me, my spiritual smackdown. I say I want to experience peace, and God's like, every opportunity you get, you're like throwing a dagger here. You're sending a nasty email. You're sending like a text out of like vengeance. Like, you don't want peace. Like, that's just lip service. You don't actually want peace because you're not operating in the frequency of peace.
So if someone is wondering then, okay, I know what I want, but I can feel, see, witness that I'm not in the frequency of it, then how do they shift in the frequency of their desires?
Like, recognize how powerful of a creator you are. Like, you have the power to choose in any moment. And so for me, it was like in the experience, my spiritual smackdown, like the thing I really wanted to experience was peace. And so I had to let peace guide me. Peace became my anchor. And so it was like, okay, you want peace. You also like really want to step in with righteousness right now. You want to punish this person right now. You want to fire, like, stop. Like you've got to have like that amount of radical self-responsibility. It's like, this is not, one of the chapters in my book is I think it's titled, I'm not willing to disrupt my peace. And that was birthed in this energy. Like, so all these things that I'm going to do go against what I say I want to experience. I've just got to stop. And I know that that sounds so simple, but it really to me is like,
Yeah.
I get to choose, who do I want to be in this moment? Do I want to create more turbulence, or do I want to hold the space for peace? And then I've got to start aligning my actions with the thing that I say I want.
And it's the same whether it's abundance or it's peace.
Yep. Yep. So, abundance, money, because I mean, my main teachings are around God and money. And so I can't say, again, I want to experience more wealth and more abundance. And then every time I like open my fridge, I like drop into lack. Every time I look at my bank account, I'm like, there's not enough here. Every time I go to spend money, like that, I drop into this like frequency of not enough, not enough, not enough. It's like, I mean, I can tell you there is like, I have stories of like money miracle after money miracle after money miracle because I expect it.
Mm.
I expect God to show up for me. I expect God to sign my paychecks. I expect God to show up in deliverance. I expect God to conspire in my favor because I'm conspiring in my favor. I'm following those soul nudges. I'm doing the work to rewire the limiting belief codes that I've been holding on to.
So it's a frequency. It's a choice to be in the frequency.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Seeing where we take ourselves out, like this is what I said before, like seeing where I like tell myself these lies and then hold on to them. Like you're gonna have the thought. The thought is fine, but don't hold on to the thought. Don't hold on to the lie.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm looking at the time, and I know that we could keep going easily because this is such a conversation that is flowing. I would love to wrap it up for if you can share if there's someone who is listening who is in the middle of a spiritual smackdown right now. They're having their own moment and maybe in that space of not sure to where the strength will come from, unsure what to do. What would you want them to know?
I would want them to know that they're the answer to their own prayers. Like you
Mm.
have it within you, the knowing within you, the truth within you. And so you've got to get quiet enough to listen and like really, like honestly, truly be willing to shut out the outside noise. Like all exists within you. Like there, again, there's not the becoming, there's not something that you need to like fix, figure out. And if you can like really tune into that divinity within you, the God within you, that's the pathway.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, where can people find you? What is the best way for someone to connect with you, to be in your world?
I mean, Instagram, like social media, Instagram is definitely the place, and it's the Jaclyn Shaw. I mean, you just read my book, so there's the Spiritual Smackdown book. And I'd say for anyone who like really wants to drop like deeper into these conversations about like God and entrepreneurship and money, I have a free offering that I'd start with. It's called Get Paid by God, and it's a 3-day experience that I mean will absolutely shift in the frequency that we're talking about here.
We will link to all of these in the show notes. Thank you so much for being with us, Jaclyn. Honestly, this was such a beautiful conversation, and I'm looking forward to we'll have you back when the second book comes out.
Amazing, amazing. That's gonna be, that's next fall.
Well, it
Um,
sounds like it's happening pretty quickly.
yeah, it is happening quick. It is happening next fall. And if you're interested, I'll also let you know that there's a wait list where I get to actually gift people the book 3 months early before it becomes publicly available. So if you desire that, you can just like let me know and we'll hook you up there too.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Well, thanks again. And if you want to, we're going to link to all of the information in the show notes. Once again, I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for being with us. And as always, remind you that you are spiritually wired for love, for success, for peace, for abundance. And we will see you next week. Thank you for listening to Spiritually Wired. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and leave a review. It really makes a big difference for the podcast. And if you're ready to dive deeper and join a soul-led community, come be a part of the Spiritually Wired membership. With weekly live lessons and a rich library of recorded classes, it's designed to support you every step of the way on your spiritual journey. We currently have a special offer where you can receive your first month for half the price. You can find a link in the show notes or come check it out at reneewalkerwellness.com. Until next time, remember to take some deep breaths. Remember that you are spiritually wired.